Hi, welcome back to Ideas Box. And if this is your first time here, then thanks for dropping by. I'm Jimmy, and today's video is of our fire pump setup. We had a problem with the fire pump a week or so ago, and I've got to get it sorted out as we're currently in the middle of bushfire season. In this video, I changed the carby and set it up so I can run the pump back into the supply tank for testing purposes, and I explained why. Anywho, let's get into it.
Okay, so I've got a bit of a confession to make. I did a video last year of me testing our fire pump, and I've had a bit of trouble with it. We were using it to transfer some water from a large tank to a small tank, and it was running for about an hour and a half, and then it conked out, and it's running like ridiculously rich. So I think there's a blockage in the carby, and these carbies are fairly unserviceable. There's a few adjustments, but there's not much you can do except clean them out. But looking online, the simplest solution is to buy a new carburetor, and then I'll clean that one up. So I've got a spare, as if I need a spare, but never mind. So I've got this carby here, and you don't adjust the mixture on these. There is a jet that runs up from the fuel box. You adjust this screw here, and that's a little air bleed screw. And where that comes out is just in there. That little pinhole there. So that adjusts the air mixture. That's called a pilot screw. Now that one's not really adjustable. You've got like an eighth of a turn. It's got a little stop thing on there. It's a little aluminium thing pressed onto the head of the brass screw. This one's more adjustable, which means I'll probably tinker with it and make it worse before it's better. But okay, so I'm going to change the carburetor now. Take the air cleaner off. The air cleaner looks pretty good. Put all the bits for the air cleaner in there. And like I said, this is our fire pump, so I'd like it to run nicely. To be honest, I'm kind of happy it did play up when we were using it to transfer water, because better that than it conks out while we're trying to fight a fire. So now the carburetor comes off, so what you do is you just take that gasket and to rescue that gasket. I'll give that a bit of a wipe. So I've got these two linkages here. You've got the throttle linkage. Oh, hang on, I've got to undo the fuel line first. So I'll pinch the fuel line with these so that it doesn't leak fuel everywhere. That might be tight enough. Maybe I'll just do a little bit tighter. So if I pinch the fuel line with that, too tight. There we go. Now I can take the fuel line off. So I'll take the fuel line off. So then you rotate that so that slot lines up, lift that out, and then just take the governor spring off. There we go. Now that carby will come off. So I'll rescue that paper gasket, because that's in pretty good nick. I'll reuse that. I'll just give everything a bit of a wipe, make sure all the surfaces are nice and clean. There we go. I've got the gasket off in one piece, so it looks in pretty good nick really. There's no tears. The important bit is it seals on that little circle there, which looks fine. So I'll reuse that gasket. Put that carburetor over there. So that goes on like that. And then the new carburetor goes on like that. So put that linkage in there. Yep. Put the governor spring back on. Oops, take the little rubber cap off the fuel line. Rubber cap off the fuel line. Put the fuel line on the little connection there. Put the hose clamp on. There we go. Undo the fuel line clamp. Didn't get fuel everywhere. That's always a good thing, isn't it? So, this gasket here, it's got a bit of rubber on it. If you look real close, you see it's got rubber with something I can point with. See, it's got a little rubber piece. As long as that's intact, you should be pretty right to reuse that. And that goes that way. You can tell by the holes line up right. Then this goes on. That's pretty clean. Yep, I think we should be alright to put that back on. And this breather just has to go back in that little hole there in the timing cover. There we go. So that goes into the timing cover hole there. Right, these two nuts go back on here, and then this bolt goes in there. It just goes through into that little plate there, which is threaded. There we go. So I'll just tighten them up. Now, part of the problem I've had with this is, like I said, we've had this pump for 10 years, and I've only run the engine for 5 or 10 minutes. I've only run the engine for 5 or 10 minutes each year because I didn't want to deplete our firefighting tanks. And I think that's what's caused the problem with this. I think that's what's caused the problem with this engine. Is it's got gummed, the carburetor's got gummed up, and I need to let it run for a bit longer. So I've put the carburetor on. I'm not going to tinker with any of these screws because, like I said, it's set from factory, so it should run okay. I've got the fuel turned off at the moment. I mustn't forget to turn that back on. The choke works, so that's good. And so I'm going to go and set up a recirc circuit now. So I'll put this pump back in place, and we'll set up a recirculation circuit so that I can run it back to the tank and run this pump for a bit longer. So that's what I'm going to do now. I've put new engine oil in it, and this is the stuff that it said on the internet to use. It's Honda oil, Honda engine. It's the right weight oil. You can only assume it's the right oil, can't you? And I have filled it up to, put that in, don't screw it in, just put it in, take it out, and it's just over halfway up the little dipstick. And it looks to me like it's about halfway up the threads, and it says to the bottom of the thread. So allowing for a little bit of splash, I think that's where it needs to be. It's better than it was. It was over full before. I took 600 ml out of it. As you can see, that's the amount of oil that came out of it. So there's 600 ml, and there's 650, so 625 ml of oil. So on paper the right amount, but it was definitely coming out over the fill plug. So I don't know what's going on, and I've seen complaints on the internet too that 600 ml is over full. So I've filled it up now to the dipstick. So 0.6 of a litre I took out of it, and I've put about 450 back in. So I'll run it for a bit, and then I'll check it. I'll check it tomorrow. I'll check it later this afternoon. But I'm going to put that pump in place now. Thought of a way to easily connect it to the tank so it recirculates from this outlet here. So I'm going to do that. We're going to run this pump for a bit and see how it goes. I'm going to take another piece of pipe from there, run it up around here, just in a gentle curve, and then just up into here, just so I can test this pump, because this is our fire pump and I'd like to know it's going to run properly for this fire season. So let's put a hole in there and we'll get a piece of egg pipe, and we'll make this pump work for just now. It's not overly critical where this goes in, as long as it's above the water line, which it is, because the overflow on the other side of the tank is about here. So if I put this about here, where's a good place to put it? I don't think it makes a great deal of difference. No, the reason I did that so slowly is I didn't want that plug to fall inside the tank. So that should be good to go. Just get all the loose bits off of that, and I can put my pipe in through there and start this pump up and see how we go. So that's the battery connected. That's the pipe that runs to the house. So all I've done is disconnect it from there, and this new piece of pipe, the test pipe I suppose you'd call it, is going to run through that gap, round the back of the little fire pump house, up round that way, and into the top of this tank here. So we'll go and grab a piece of pipe and do that, and we'll see how we go. So now I open the tank supply valve, check for leaks. No leaks. No leaks. No leaks. Well, that's good. I don't mean to sound surprised, but you never know when you've had something apart, do you? Well, that's a suction line, and this is the pressure line. So there's nothing for it now but to start it up and try it. First thing first, open this. Yep, bleed the air out the pump. Fuel on. So, fuel on, choke on. Yep, water's hooking the tank, I can feel it. So I'll hang around for a few minutes and watch this. Right, I've just pulled the plug out, and look at that. How good is that? That's been running for half an hour. That looks just about perfect to me. I'm nobody's expert, but that looks pretty darn good. Oh, I'm chuffed to bits with that, I really am. Because the plug before, when I took it out, when the engine conked out before, was black. It actually had little bits of carbon piled up, and it was starting to arc out, I think, or short out, I mean. So no, I'm pleased with that. That looks pretty damn good to me. So there it is, set up again, ready to go. There's the instructions on how to operate it. And as I joke with people, or semi-joke with people, it cost us probably $2,000 to set up this fire pump system with sprinklers in the house and everything, so I kind of hope it's money wasted, but I'm sure you'll understand the part of a joke there. Okay, well I reckon that's just about it. I've also cleared out all the dried leaves that were down there because the exhaust is about here, so I didn't want to set fire to the dried leaves because it would just take off into all that. That's a bit embarrassing. Every couple of years we have a bit of a clean out. I think a fair bit of that's got to go, so cleaned up all the dried leaves, so next time we test the fire pump it should be good to go. So there's basically my diagram of what I need to do, and it will be, this will be teed into the supply line to the house, and then this will just come up to the ball valve, and then this elbow will point back this way and go back into the tank. There'll be probably 1.5 meters of pipe here, and then probably 2 meters of pipe going into the tank itself. So this is, I'll show you in a minute what I'm doing, and I'll show you why I've actually made it a lot simpler than I thought it was going to be. So for the moment we'll put this together. So what you do now is I'm going to insert this into a line that's already in place. And the reason I've partly assembled that is because obviously this will take up some place in the line, and the line's a fairly good fit. So I need to cut from that shoulder there to that shoulder there out of the line that this is going into. So that's 140 millimeters. I'm going to cut 140 millimeters out of that line, so this can insert where that section of line has been cut out. So we'll go and do that now, and I'm sure it'll all make sense in a few minutes. So that's going to go there. So I've got to bring that back to about there, so I've got enough pipe to work with. I don't actually have the right elbow for on there, so it's going to have to go about there. So that will then so I'll mark now where to cut that pipe, and we'll put this in place. So that's got to go about there. So the first cut's going to be there, and the second cut's going to be about there. Right, so that's that fitting in place. They're all tight, that's tight. That's the one that's going to go up and then elbow across into the tank. So I'll do that now. I'm going to measure the length of pipe I need here, cut it, and then it's going to have a gentle curve up to there. So that coming off at an angle actually isn't as big a drama as I thought it was going to be. That should be fine. Right, so that's all set up. That's running up there in a gentle curve, which is fine. I've just zip tied it for just now, and that goes into the tank next to the actual downpipe. Tidy my job space. So if that valve there is open, it'll pour water from the pump back into the tank. But I have to make sure also, have to make sure that these two valves on the house are both closed. That's the fire hose outlet, and that's the line that runs up the roof to the sprinklers. So if they're closed, that's that line there isolated, and that's the one that runs back to the fire pump. Okay, so I open the supply line from the tank, check here for leaks. No leaks. So now when I start the pump, I'll just bleed the pump. Yep, no air in the pump. Fuel on, choke on. A couple of small leaks, we'll fix them, then we'll try it again. So that's that job completed. Doesn't leak, which is nice. A little bit extra thread tape is good. I think part of the problem was this thread here is a BSPT and this thread here isn't. So this one tapers and this one doesn't, so they don't tend to agree all the time depending on different manufacturers. So I'm going to leave that valve open and then I'll amend the operation sheet to close that. Actually no, I've changed my mind. I'm going to close that one and I'm going to open the one for the rooftop sprinklers. So that's the valve for the rooftop sprinklers. So I'll open that. So now the default setting for the pump is pump on, sprinklers running. On second thoughts, I don't think I will amend this pump running sheet because I'm the only one who's likely to be messing around with these valves to test this pump. So I'm not going to bother with that. If it becomes an issue I can amend it, but I think I'll just leave things as they are because you know the old saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So there it is there. It runs from that valve there up to that elbow there, and I've put some hoop steel on those pipes because the cable ties were really just to test that the system was working alright, because they won't last very long in the Australian sun. So I think that's that job done.
Okay, thanks for watching. I hope this video helped you with a problem you might have, or at the very least you found it interesting. Make sure to click like and subscribe, and don't forget that notification bell too. Well, I reckon that's it for today, so bye for now.